The rain poured heavily that night, masking the sound of hurried footsteps on the cobblestone driveway. Sarah stood at the threshold of the house she had envied for years, the keys trembling in her hand. She had told herself this was the only way. Now, standing here, she wasn't sure whether she felt triumph or terror. Emily's house was perfect. Warm light spilled from the tall windows, revealing a carefully curated interior. Every detail screamed wealth, taste, and comfort, a life Sarah had always wanted but never thought she could have, until tonight. The blood on Sarah's hands had long dried, but the memory of the act lingered. It wasn't supposed to end this way. They were best friends, or at least they had been once Sarah and Emily had met in college. Emily was the girl everyone wanted to be, beautiful, intelligent, and effortlessly charming. Sarah was the quiet one who struggled to find her footing. They were an unlikely pair, but Emily had taken Sarah under her wing, guiding her through the chaos of late-night study sessions, bad boyfriends, and the overwhelming pressure to succeed. For years, their bond seemed unbreakable. Emily offered Sarah a lifeline when she needed it most, even letting her move in temporarily after Sarah lost her job. But as time passed, Sarah couldn't help but notice the stark differences in their lives. Emily's career soared, while Sarah hopped from one dead-end job to another. Emily bought a beautiful house in an upscale neighborhood. Sarah rented a tiny apartment with peeling wallpaper. Sarah told herself she was happy for her friend, but deep down, bitterness took root. Every gesture of kindness from Emily felt like a reminder of her failures. Sarah's jealousy grew slowly, like a shadow creeping over her. Emily seemed oblivious, continuing to offer her support and advice. "You'll get there," Emily would say, her tone filled with well-meaning encouragement that Sarah perceived as condescension. The final straw came during a dinner party at Emily's house. The guests were all accomplished professionals, laughing and sipping expensive wine as Emily floated through the room, the perfect hostess. Sarah sat in the corner, feeling invisible. Emily had introduced her as my oldest and dearest friend, but quickly moved on to more interesting conversations. Sarah overheard a guest asking Emily why she kept Sarah around. "She's been through a lot," Emily had said softly. "She just needs a little push." The words felt like a knife to Sarah's chest. The idea came to her that same night. It wasn't fully formed, just a whisper at the back of her mind. What if Emily's life could be hers? What if she didn't have to be the overlooked friend anymore? The thought terrified her at first, but as days turned into weeks, it began to consume her. Emily's house, her life, her success. They were so close, almost within reach. Sarah began planning. She started small, observing Emily's habits, her routines, and her weaknesses. She learned that Emily often left her back door unlocked and that she kept her spare house keys in a ceramic pot by the porch. She convinced herself this was justified. After all, hadn't Emily stolen the life Sarah deserved? The night it happened, Sarah had gone over to Emily's house for dinner. Everything had seemed normal. Emily laughed and poured them both glasses of wine, completely unaware of Sarah's growing resentment. But Sarah couldn't wait any longer. As Emily turned to grab something from the kitchen, Sarah acted. She didn't even remember picking up the heavy candlestick from the table, only the sickening sound as it connected with Emily's skull. Emily crumpled to the floor, her eyes wide with shock. "Why?" she managed to whisper before the light left her eyes. Sarah didn't answer. The hours after the murder were a blur. Sarah worked quickly, dragging Emily's body into the basement and cleaning up the blood. She told herself no one would find out. Emily didn't have any close family, and her friends would believe Sarah's story about Emily leaving town suddenly for work. She deleted Emily's recent messages and posted a vague update on Emily's social media about needing a break from everything. Sarah moved into the house the next day, packing up her meager belongings and settling into the life she thought she deserved. She told herself this was her reward for years of suffering in Emily's shadow. At first, everything seemed perfect. Sarah loved the feeling of waking up in Emily's luxurious bed, surrounded by beautiful things. She hosted dinners, pretending to be the charming, successful woman Emily had been. But then, strange things started happening. It began with small, almost imperceptible details. Lights would flicker for no reason, and doors Sarah swore she had locked would be ajar. At night, she heard soft whispers, though the house was empty. One morning, Sarah found a note on the kitchen counter in Emily's handwriting. "I know what you did." She laughed it off, telling herself she must have written it and forgotten. But as the days passed, the notes continued to appear. Sarah's paranoia grew. She began to suspect that someone knew about the murder. She checked the locks on the doors obsessively and avoided Emily's basement, where the body still lay. Her dreams were haunted by Emily's face, her eyes wide with betrayal. Sarah woke up in cold sweats, the sound of Emily's voice echoing in her ears. Why? The house, once a symbol of everything Sarah had ever wanted, began to feel like a prison. One night, Sarah decided to confront her fears. She went down to the basement, armed with a flashlight and a knife. But when she opened the door, Emily's body was gone. Panicking, Sarah searched the house, convinced that someone had moved the body. In her frantic state, she tripped over a loose floorboard in the living room. Beneath it, she found a small, locked box. Inside were photographs, documents, and a journal. Emily's journal. As Sarah read through the entries, her blood ran cold. Emily had been hiding, a dark secret of her own. The perfect life Sarah had envied was a facade. Emily had been involved in shady dealings, blackmail and worse. She had enemies, powerful ones. Sarah realized with horror that Emily's death might not have gone unnoticed after all. The whispers grew louder, the strange occurrences more frequent. Sarah became a shell of herself, paranoid and sleepless. One night, she saw a figure standing in the hallway, a woman with blood dripping down her face. Emily. Terrified, Sarah fled the house, running into the stormy night. But no matter how far she ran, she couldn't escape the feeling that Emily was still with her. Sarah was found weeks later, wandering aimlessly in a nearby forest, muttering Emily's name. She was committed to a psychiatric facility where she spent her days staring blankly at the walls, haunted by the life she had stolen. If only she knew the truth, that Emily's death had set off a chain of events far